Okay, I want to say one other thing about Stoicism in the context of St. Ignatius and Jesuit education and Ignatian spirituality. Those of you who are familiar with the spiritual exercises of Ignatius might recall something similar in the first week, which is called the Principle and Foundation to the Spiritual Exercises, where Ignatius says, well, I'll just read it. You can see Ignatius says something very similar to the cultivation of the virtue of apathy, or apatheia, or not caring. Caring only about God's will is what Ignatius is getting at. But I'll read it here very quickly. This is in Principle and Foundation, first week of the Spiritual Exercises. The human person is created to praise, reverence, and serve God, our Lord, and by doing so save his or her soul. The other things on the face of the earth are created for human beings in order to help them pursue the end for which they are created. It follows from this that one must use other created things insofar as they help toward one's end, and free oneself from them insofar as they are obstacles to one's end. To do this, we need to make ourselves indifferent. There it is, indifferent. This is sometimes called Ignatian indifference. We need to make ourselves indifferent to all created things, indifferent to all created things, provided the matter is subject to our free choice, i.e. within our control, and there is no prohibition. Very interesting. There's that idea of indifference to things that are outside of our control or whatever's in our control. Thus, as far as we are concerned, we should not want health more than illness, wealth more than poverty, fame more than disgrace, a long life more than a short one, and similarly for all the rest, but we should desire and choose only what helps us move towards the end for which we are created. Now, you might just say we shouldn't desire these things because they're outside of our control, i.e. they're up to God. So Ignatian indifference is very similar, I think, to the idea of the virtue of apathy in Stoicism. And as I've said before, Stoicism and the Stoics, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, etc., were appropriated by Eastern Christianity. And the virtue of apatheia, very interesting, is by Maximus the Confessor, for example. This is in a book called the Philokalia, where they've compiled a lot of these fathers of the church who have blended Stoicism and Christianity. Maximus the Confessor says agape, or unconditional love, the love that Christians are supposed to cultivate, the love that is commanded by Jesus on Maundy Thursday, love one another as I have loved you. Agapeic love, or charity, or caritas, is actually apatheia. Why? Ooh, very interesting. Well, think about it. If you had that kind of love where you didn't care, you loved totally without need for reciprocity, you love unconditionally, you don't care how it's being received, you just sort of overflow with love. This is what the Stoic, or what the early Christians, the Eastern Christians, thought of as the love of God. I remember one of my favorite passages, the first time I read it in the New Testament, I was completely overwhelmed by the ability to, not the unconditional love in the passage, but the ability really not to care. It's the passage where Jesus says in Luke 6 and Matthew 5, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and I forget the other one, pray for those who persecute you. If someone strikes you on the one cheek, give them the other also. If they take away your shirt, give them your undershirt as well. If they want to go 1 mile, go 2. Give to everyone who asks of you, and if somebody takes away your goods, don't ask for them back, but do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and you'll be like your Father, he says. Now, I remember when I read that, I thought, okay, the only way I could imagine being like that, if someone were to take my stuff and say, here, take it, is if I didn't care, i.e. as if I had apatheia. And so it's very interesting that these ideas are connected and appropriated by Christianity. That agapeic love, or charity, or Christian love, is synonymous with not caring. So you might think that, well, if I get rid of care, I pull out care, I'll just sit there sort of like this. But on the contrary, cultivating apatheia enables you to love, at least for the early Christians.